Hi everyone, welcome to e-Belajau Biology program for Form 4, Chapter 8, Respiratory Systems in Humans and Animals. I am Cikgu Hayati from Sekolah Sains Muzaffar Shah Melaka, and I'm going to discuss Content Standard 8.1, Types of Respiratory System. By the end of the lesson, you should be able to identify respiratory structures in insects, fish, amphibians, and humans, as well as describing the adaptations of those structures for gaseous exchange. And you should be able to compare and contrast the respiratory structure in humans and animals. Let us start with the first respiratory structure, which is the insect respiratory structure. The insect respiratory system is also known as a tracheal system, and this system is made up of air sacs, the trachea, which are also known as an air tubes, tracheals, as well as spiracles. What are spiracles? Spiracles are small pores found in the thorax and the abdomen of an insect. And this spiracle allows the intake of air from the surrounding into the trachea, and the air moves along the trachea until it reaches the tracheals at the end of the trachea. When the gases or the oxygen reaches the end of the tracheal seal, they simply diffuse into the body cells. The reason is that, as you can see, the tips of the tracheals, they are direct in contact with the body tissues, therefore allowing direct diffusion of oxygen into the body tissues without being transported by blood for the diffusion to occur. And these tracheals, they are also known as the respiratory surface of an insect. Respiratory surface means it is the site where the exchange of gases occur. How about the air sacs? Air sacs are the structure filled with air, and this air is meant to speed up the delivery of the gases to the body tissues. So, for the tracheals to carry out its function as a respiratory surface, it needs a number of adaptations for the efficiency of the gases exchange. What are the adaptations of these tracheals? These are the adaptations of the tracheals. First, they are large in numbers. The tracheals are found a lot in the insect. Okay, why there should be numerous number of tracheals found in the insect? When there are lots of tracheals, it can provide a larger surface area for the exchange of gases to occur. It means here loss of oxygen can diffuse into the body tissues, and loss of carbon dioxide can diffuse out of the body tissues. And the tracheals also has thin wall, which is one-celtic, and this one-celtic wall is important to allow rapid exchange of gases. So this can lead to higher rate of diffusion of gases into the body cells. And the last adaptation is having a moist wall. The wall needs to be moist for the gases to dissolve first before they can diffuse into the body tissues. Okay, how about the second respiratory structure? The second respiratory structure is the fish respiratory structure. A fish has gills found on both sides of it, and the gills are made up of filaments here, which is supported by the gill arch. And the filaments has numerous number of thin wall called lamella. And lamella, they are like the tracheals, they are also the respiratory surface where the gases exchange occur. Therefore, they also need adaptations for the efficiency of gases exchange. Let us find out what the adaptations are. From the table here, you can see the adaptations of a lamella is almost the same as the one found in the tracheals, except for the third one. Lamella is supplied with networks of blood capillaries. This is for the blood to transport the gases to the body tissues. The reason is that lamella is unlike tracheals. They are not found direct in contact with the body tissues. That is why, as I said just now, the gases need to be transported by blood for the diffusion to the body, into the body tissues can occur. Now, let us move on to the next respiratory structure. But before that, have you ever wondered why fish cannot live on land? The reason is that when fish live on land, their filaments will be dry. If you remember, the lamella found in the filaments need to be moist, okay? But they're constantly moist actually because they live in water, correct or not? So when they are dry, oxygen cannot dissolve into them, and this decreases the rate of diffusion. And when the filaments are dry, they also tend to stick together, and this decreases the surface area. Okay? The surface area has to be big for loss of exchange of gases to occur. Okay, so when the surface area decreases, so less oxygen can diffuse into the body tissues and less carbon dioxide diffusing out. Okay, the next respiratory structure is the frog respiratory structure. Frog has two respiratory structures, which are the skin and the lung. When the frog is inactive, the skin acts as their respiratory structure, but most of the time, lungs are their main respiratory structure. What are the adaptations of the lung? Okay, sorry, let us look at the adaptation of the frog skin first. Okay, the skin is thin and highly permeable to the gases, and this is to allow rapid exchange of gases. And the skin is also moist, and the skin consists of networks of blood capillaries underneath it, and this is to allow transport of gases to the body tissues. How about the lungs of the frog? A frog has a pair of lungs like this, but the inner wall of the lung is highly folded. As you can see from the diagram here, the inner wall is highly folded here. And the reason for being highly folded is to increase the surface area. Okay, and the wall of the lung is also thin and moist, and the lung also contains network of blood capillaries for the transport of the gases. The last respiratory structure is the human respiratory structure. As what you learned earlier, human respiratory system consists of a pair of lungs, a trachea, bronchus, we have bronchioles, and at the end of the bronchioles, we have numbers of alveoli. Okay, actually, we have numerous of alveoli, and the alveoli are tiny in structure. And these alveoli, they are also the respiratory surface for the in human. So it means that exchange of gases in human occurs through the alveoli, from the alveolus into the blood capillaries. How about the adaptations of the human alveoli in order for the gases exchange can occur efficiently? The table here shows the adaptations of the human alveoli. Similar to the other respiratory structures earlier, the alveoli are also found large in numbers, so that larger surface area for gases exchange. The inner wall is also moist. The wall is one-cell-thick, and as you can see here, the alveoli, they are surrounded with a network of blood capillaries for the transport of the gases to the body tissues. So we have finished discussing all the four respiratory structures. So what are the similarities that we have, or the similarities of all those four respiratory structures? So the similarities of the four respiratory structures are, okay, we discussed just now the insect respiratory structure, the frog, the fish, and the human being. So the similarities of these structures are, they are thin so that they can allow rapid exchange of gases. The structures are also moist for the oxygen to dissolve first, for the gases to dissolve first before diffusion can occur. The structures are also tiny, The lamella are tiny, the tracheals are tiny, the alveoli. Okay, the reason for being tiny is to have a large total surface area to volume ratio so that more exchange of gases can occur. And the last one, there are numerous numbers of respiratory structures found to increase the surface area. How about the differences among these respiratory structures? The insects have tracheals as their structures, fish have filaments and lamella, frogs have two respiratory structures which are the skin and lung, and alveolus or alveoli, they are the respiratory structure in humans. And as I discussed, I mentioned earlier, these structures, they are numerous in number. And how this numerous in number is achieved by these four animals, by these four organisms discussed. Insects, the numerous number is achieved by having numerous number of tracheals. Fish, numerous number of lamella found. Frog, by having folded inner membrane of the lung. And then humans, by having numerous of alveoli found in our lung. So, as a summary, as a conclusion, respiratory structures are important for the exchange of gases, but for this efficient gases exchange to occur, the structures need a number of adaptations. First, they need to be thin, the wall need to be thin, the surface need to be moist, they are numerous in number, they are lots, they can be found lots and lots in the insect, in the fish, and so on, and they are also tiny in structure. So we have come to the end of our lesson today. I hope you have learned a lot, you have enjoyed the lesson, and see you again in the next lesson.